G'day, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Detour Live. Normally, I'm joined by four-time National Road Champion John Trevorrow, but he's actually doing some work for the first time in about 6 months. So he's on a Zoom call, and I've got a new and improved version of Iffy, a bit skinnier, a bit more knowledge, a little bit more polished, and doesn't cough and splatter before every answer. It's Matthew Keenan, and your audio, let's have a listen. We got an audio problem. Can you hear us? Are you there, Keenan? Hang on. This is a great start. I'm just going to do an audio test. I can't actually hear your audio. This is a sensational start. Unmute mic. Let's have a go again at your mic. Geez, Keenan, I gave you a big pump up, and your audio doesn't seem to be working. This is a sensational start. Unmute mic. It says can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected. So maybe try unplug your cables and then plug them in again. I'm just going to try and fill dead air as we try and get these audio issues sorted. You there, Keenan? No, still nothing, mate. This is hilarious. You know what I'll try, Keenan? I'll kick you off, click the link again, and let's start again. And I'll just fill the dead air while we get this sorted. Hang on. Keenan's gone. I'll kick him from the studio. Geez, this is a first for the detour. Well, overnight, Primoz Roglic, as we tipped, won a stage of the Vuelta, stage number 8. And he's only about 16 seconds off Carapaz in the overall standings now. And we predicted that, as Sam Bewley predicted the stage before, Michael Woods. So we're 2 from 2. And we've got a pretty big show as well. We're going to have Simon Gerrans on later, and he's going to talk about what his next chapter looks like. I want to ask him about things like the service course. So this is a project that he's working with Christian Meyer. When I was in Girona, the service course was only newly established, and it's basically to give people the experience of, as a pro, they have like service courses for all the teams, and they want to give that experience to locals. And you can literally go over on a holiday. You don't even have to take a bike, and you can go and they'll sort you out. They'll give you a bike to ride on. You can get a massage. The facilities there are unbelievable, and you can go for rides with guys like Christian and Giro. It's a fantastic initiative. Now, Keenan's trying to reconnect as we speak, and we will have John Trevorrow on in about 10 minutes' time. But it looks like we're having trouble getting Keenan back into the system. It says device not connected. This is probably one of the biggest clusters we've ever had to start off the detour. If anyone's got any comments, pump them through. We might even have to, when I upload this as an audio file, I might even have to do some trimming, because this is not great podcasting at the moment. Keenan, your device is not connected. What I might do is I'll throw to a quick word from our mates at Bike Exchange, and that way I can sort out the technical difficulties behind the scenes.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. bike exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Still no Matty Keenan. We're working on that, but we'll soldier on because Johnny Giro is going to be on later on as well. Couple of things I want to talk to about Keenan, with Keenan, was a few of the breaking news stories over the last couple of days. One of the ones was from my old mate, Mauro Vegni. He's wanting punishment for Jumbo Visma and EF Pro Cycling after their actions during the Giro. Now, most people know my opinions of the boss of the Giro at the moment. I'm not his biggest fan. Hang on, we might have Keenan. Please work. Yes, I can hear audio. Oh, mate. I'll tell you.
So I don't know what went wrong. I've got no idea. So I've reverted to the phone.
Yeah, perfect. I don't know how in commentary you can do it where you're used to working, say, with McEwen, but say McEwen drops out, or there was that day that he was late in the commentary box. Yeah. How you feel solo for such a long period of time.
Do you want my favourite one with Robbie? It was on the stage. It was in a famous wine growing area, and Robbie had to do a corporate ride. So he said that he'd arrive around about an hour after I'd actually started commentating. So I knew that he was going to be late. I figured Robbie says an hour, I'll give that an hour and a half. So then we're commentating, or I'm commentating, not we. I'm commentating. Nothing is happening. I mean, nothing. It's pancake flat, 2-rider breakaway. They're going along at about 36 k's per hour. I mean, I could have kept up. Hour goes by. I know Robbie's going to be running late. I look at the weather conditions. It's a block headwind. So the corporate ride is running late. Robbie gets across the finish line with his corporate ride. This is out of his control. About an hour and 40 or so, an hour 45 after the race has started. So I've been going an extra 45 minutes over what I'd anticipated. I thought, okay, he'll be here soon. Another half an hour almost goes past. No, Robbie. He comes in and he smells like he's ready to take me out for dinner. He's had a shower. He's got the aftershave on.
Yeah.
And he comes in, Dan, he comes in with not a snack, not a sandwich. He comes in with a platter. He sits down next to me in commentary with this big platter of food, and he passes me across a note. Sorry, mate, hunger flat. Sits next to me for the next 15 minutes and keeps eating.
Mate, how did you not lose it? Like, I would have lost the plot.
I did afterwards.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I traveled up with him.
I travelled with Robbie in 2012 when we were doing the backstage passes with Green Edge, and it was hilarious. Like it was just hard to lock him down to a set routine. Like he's a man that likes making decisions on the seat of his pants,
which is actually good for but that's good for me. You know what I'm like. You and I have done a few things together, and I'm a little bit over organised in some respects. I'm the kind of guy who plans to be spontaneous. Spending time with Robbie is actually good for me. It helps me relax. But one of the biggest challenges I had in commentary was I was commentating the Vuelta solo, as I did do, start to finish for stages for the first, I think, 6 or 7 years, or maybe even 7 or 8 years that I covered it. So the first year that I did it was 2008, and there was a stage in Andorra, and it was biblical rain. I mean, this was Noah's Ark material. And for the last 60 kilometres, we had no pictures. We just had images of the fixed cameras at the finish line. And they rolled in a couple of highlights of the sign-on, image of the finish line. Sign-on, image of the finish line. And the internet coverage was poor, so I wasn't getting as many updates as to what was happening, who was in the breakaway, etc. I ran my own podcast for 60 kilometres, basically. And then the riders came around the corner with around about 250 metres to go. And that was the first I knew as to who was leading. And Alessandro Ballan won the stage. I remember it vividly, like it was yesterday.
Geez, if you can get through that, then when it does all work, it must feel like a piece of cake.
Yeah, I'll give you another one. Here's a good one. This is another one on the Vuelta. The Vuelta is always a good one for stories. They were doing a circuit around a mountain. And I was traveling with one of the guys that was organising the broadcast, Jorge. Fantastic guy. Great guy to travel with. And they'd made a change to the time that they were going to do the broadcast. And I wasn't aware of that. So we were having a bite to eat before going to the finish line, which was just at the top of the hill. And the peloton's coming, the breakaway comes past us, and Jorge says, I feel like I'm forgetting something. I've told TVE I've told the Dutch, I told the Belgians, the French know. Oh, Matthew, we're starting the broadcast early. We're on in about 20 minutes.
Oh, no.
And the commentary position is 10 Ks up the road. He said, we're starting in 30 minutes. The commentary position is 10 Ks up the road. So we had to wait for the breaker to go past, the peloton to go past, and then the gruppetto goes past, and Paul Martins riding for Rabobank was at the back of the group. So we're sitting behind Paul Martins now in the car, and the clock is ticking down. I walked into the commentary box as the 1 minute ticker had started counting down. I got into the box with 57 seconds to spare and then put the headphones on before I then started getting, all my paperwork and so on out of the bag before I started commentating.
So what's the contingency plan? Say you couldn't make it and you couldn't get into the box. What would they do?
No, I don't know. They didn't have one because they didn't anticipate me eating lunch on the side of the road. And they thought that I was in safe hands because I was traveling with the guy organising the broadcast, employed by the race organiser. So you would have thought I was in good hands. I'll give you one more. So the highlights package from the Vuelta, after each stage, you go into another truck and you do a 26-minute highlights package. And it goes out as live. But it chops and changes around a little bit. And there was one stage I remember vividly. I'm about 10 minutes into it, and then the screen goes blue, and it says, no signal. But I can hear that the broadcast is still going out. So I hit the button to talk back to the producer. Matthew in international, no pictures, no signal, no pictures. Keep talking, generic, just talking generic. Who's in the leader's jersey? Who was in the breakaway earlier? Matthew in international, no pictures. Nothing. No response from back in the truck. So then another couple of words, I pull out my phone and I dial Jorge's number again, the same guy, and then hit mute. Jorge, Matthew, no pictures, no signal. Start talking again, still blue screen. The door opens up into the commentary box. It's Jorge. He looks in, he goes, Matthew, no pictures. So they've gone around the back of the truck. They've had to plug some cables back in. The guys doing the operations on the truck, they were packing up, ready to go home, and they just pulled the wrong cable out.
Oh, no.
So the cable for my images was pulled out whilst the signal was still going out on the satellite, and I was commentating on a blue screen.
Mate, that's a thing that always baffles me is there's so many cables in this media area, and they all have to go in the right spots. You stuff up one cable, the whole thing can go pooh. Yeah,
exactly. I walked past him and I said, I'm not touching it. I'm not going anywhere near it.
You missed all the drama. We had drama at the start of the show. Keenan's audio wasn't working, and then
my fault, John.
Dribble for 5 minutes. Yeah.
I'm glad I missed it. I'm glad I missed it because I would have been blamed. So that's good.
It was your fault because you weren't here.
Now, one thing I was talking about before you came on, Keenan, is my mate, the director of the Giro, he's fired me up again because he's come out and said that there needs to be some form of punishment for Jumbo-Visma and EF Pro Cycling after their actions during the Giro. Unbelievable.
Punishment?
Unbelievable.
That is an own goal. That is an absolute own goal. So he wants to punish Jumbo-Visma for putting the safety and the health of their riders and the health of the entire community, the global community, ahead of his bike race. That's what he's saying. It's ridiculous.
What do you reckon, John?
Joe Pesci.
Yeah, Joe Pesci.
Oh, look, I'm not his biggest fan, and his attitude right at the start. Look, I love the Giro. As you guys know, I've said often enough, I've ridden that. I've been to 20-something Tours de France, and I don't know how many, maybe 8 Giros, but I absolutely am in love with the race. It's something about it, the passion of the fans. It's the bike riders' race, and you feel it when you're there, as you well know, Matty. But I've never been in love with the organisation. They're a bit... Okay, it's a tell. It'll be right, mate. It'll be right, mate. But what I don't like about that, his organisation, is his bully boy tactics he's going on with. The fact that they, in this time and scenario, that they can think that it's all right to put pro teams in a bus for an hour and a half, then race them 250 kilometres, and then put them in a bus for an hour and a half after that and think it's not going to come back and bite them. And that's what happened. People say, why didn't they complain at the start of the Giro? They knew that was going to happen. Well, they're 2.5 weeks into a Grand Tour, and everyone's getting tired. The weather's turned nasty. They've been battling this whole, thing with the COVID, and then suddenly they're getting no rest in buses, and it just was the straw that broke the camel's back, and they cracked.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a few days where the guys in the Gruppetto, they had more hours on the bike when you factor in the neutral zone and then riding from the stage finish back to the team bus because there wasn't space at the finish line for team buses. They had more time on the bike than was, they were able to actually get time in bed, sleeping, resting and recovering. And John, in terms of your comments about the race organisation, well, we're just talking about the Tour of Spain and some of the challenges that I've had there. What I love about the Vuelta, they make mistakes. We all make mistakes. I make plenty of them. So do all of us. Human beings make mistakes. The thing I love about them in Spain at the Vuelta, when they make mistakes, they go, mistake, sorry, let's try and fix it next time.
Yeah, that's not in Vigny's bad tricks at all. It's not in his DNA. No, and no, he's definitely the bully boy. And this will bring him unstuck. What was the name of the guy who was doing it before Vigny? He actually,
Michele Acquaroni.
Yeah. He actually had a fantastic attitude. He was prepared to talk with people, and it's just all
he got set up.
When
he got set up. They threw him under the bus, 100%.
Yeah,
but anyway,
they definitely did. Yeah.
I don't want to be sued, so that's allegedly he was set up. So anyway, in other good news, though, I saw another article, Keenan, about EF offering 1-year extensions to riders who took a pay cut during COVID.
That's good.
On the flip side, that's how you should treat people and the riders, because it has been a stressful period, and we were talking the other night. There's upwards of 100 riders that are out of contract. You look at a good mate of mine, Jay McCarthy. He had that crash at the Vuelta. It turns out his scans, there's no fractures of his kneecap or whatever. But that's a guy that would be super stressed at this point, particularly around contract time. So
absolutely. Well, he's without a contract. He crashed at Liège, best on Liège as well. And I saw you had Luke Roberts on last night. I recorded a podcast as well with Luke Roberts at Team Sunweb. He's one of the most interesting, intelligent bike riding people you can possibly have a chat with.
Yeah.
And we've got Rob Power on their team. He doesn't have a contract for next year either. And they're not sure whether they're going to re-sign Rob or not. Rob's still only 25 years of age, I think. But, it's a buyer's market at the moment. We've got a guy like Ben Dybel across at NTT, gets his first opportunity this year in the World Tour. The team's folded at the end of the season, and he's had no opportunities to show himself, and that could spell the end of his career at this level. It's a tough market for people without a contract for next year.
One of the guys in the last 2 days said there is 100 current pros, World Tour pros, who haven't got a contract for next year. 100. That's pretty amazing. You did mention that Luke Roberts being so professional and so switched on. We interviewed him, as we said. Yes, you haven't listened to it yet, but I did have a go at him. I don't know how professional he is, because he actually let his wife travel with me on the detour on the Tour de France one year.
We all make mistakes, John. John, we all make mistakes. So when I first started racing, John, he and his family, they'd moved to Melbourne, and they were members at the Brunswick Club because his dad was a frame builder at Hillman Cycles. And when I first started racing Thursday nights at Northcote, and I had no background in cycling whatsoever, and our club president at Northcote said, if you want to learn how to race, watch that guy. And it was the oldest guy racing A grade then, and it was Wayne Roberts. It was Luke's dad, and he was an absolute joy to watch. There was young guys, there was guys in, just starting with the VIS, AIS type level guys. And Wayne, he looked like he was on the rollers the whole time. He was so smooth, the right position. And that was Luke's dad. And he was fantastic to watch.
Well, he ran second in the Sun Tour.
Yeah, so did Luke.
To Peter Vasanko, and he ran second to me in a Tour of Tassie, the first ever Pro-Am bike race in Australia. It was a 79 Tour of Tassie. And I remember, this is a quick story, I'll whack it in now because it's perfect timing. Luke won a Tour of Tassie that I organised in the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember what year. And he won it with a final time trial at Launceston. just beating Russell Van Hout, his South Australian mate, by less than a second. It was very interesting. And when I handed him the trophy, he said, "This means something because I'm glad to take this trophy off you that you took off my father back in 1979."
Yeah. And then Luke finished second in a Sun Tour as well, and I really wanted him to win it for that same reason because his dad had finished second in the Sun Tour.
Yeah.
Because of Luke's personality, softly spoken, he is a little bit more of an introvert. Do you think that he's one of the most understated Aussies in the World Tour in terms of what he's doing currently? He really does fly under the radar. He doesn't really get the exposure that he should.
I don't think it. I know it. Let's look at his CV as a sports director. You want to go through it with one of the smallest budgets on the World Tour? So here's the guy that was calling the shots when Michael Matthews won the green jersey at the Tour. He was the guy calling the shots in that same Tour when Warren Barguil won the King in the Mountains jersey. He was the guy calling the shots when Tom Dumoulin won the Giro d'Italia, finished second at the Giro, finished second at the Tour, and challenged for the Vuelta to España. He ended up finishing in 5th position. He was the guy this year calling the shots at the Giro when they got 2nd and 3rd, with, again, one of the smallest budgets in the race. He was the one that set up their sprint lead-out train, and you saw them at the Tour. They didn't win the stage with Kees Bol. Well, Van Aert got the better of him, but that was the best lead-out train in the race. He is the most underrated sports director or cycling personality in Australia right now.
Jeez, we needed you for the intro. We just introduced him. We go, hey, we've got Robbo here. Hey, Luke, how are you? That was it.
Oh, mate, I've got huge amount of respect for Luke Roberts.
I had to remind Dan that he is an Olympic gold medalist and world champion. Oh, yeah, Dan.
He's ridden the Tour de France twice. He rode it with CSC. He rode it with the Milram team. And famously, he was in the breakaway on the day of Chaingate, and he finished in 5th position on the stage in a Bagnères de Luchon, which was won by Thomas Voeckler.
Hey, speaking of a guy who's got a Rolodex of victories and achievements, Simon Gerrans joins us live from hotel quarantine. How you holding up, Gerro?
Yeah, holding up. Only a couple of days to go now. So, I think we're 12 days in and starting to climb up the walls.
Oh,
he's got the chisel. He's got the chisel on the wall and he's counting the days down. He's just got 2 to go now.
Mate, we are literally just getting you on the show to check in just to see how you're traveling, and if you needed an excuse to get away for half an hour in the corner of the room.
Yeah, that's right. Shut the doors and put the family in one.
I was doing text back and forth with Giro earlier to get the timing right, and he's got on special father duties today. But he sent me through an absolutely sensational photo of his young daughter sucking on the little bottle. And I think I sent it to you, Dan. You should put it up, but not if Giro doesn't allow it. But it was a most gorgeous photo.
Simon, it must have been challenging with 3 kids, husband and wife, and a pregnant wife, confined to 2 hotel rooms for 14 days.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, if you think a Grand Tour is a test in resilience, there's nothing on this.
Well, this is the thing. A lot of riders are saying they don't want to come out to Australia because of the 2 weeks quarantine. Are you saying that this is justified? Just don't do it, guys.
Not if you want to recover from your season. But I guess it's definitely if you're doing this on your own, it'd be a lonely period. But there's a number of dull moments in our house, that's for sure.
It's the ultimate test of a marriage of strength.
Yeah, you can say that.
Well, the only bonus out, there is 2 rooms. So that I was glad to hear that. I thought you might all be in one room. At least there's 2 rooms.
No, they haven't shot 5 of us in one room. We're actually pretty lucky for the hotel we've ended up in. So there's a couple of separate rooms and sort of a bit of a lounge area as well. So we're able to spread out a little bit. But as you guys know, I have 2 very energetic kids and now a toddler who's on the move. It's keeping us on our toes.
That's genetics coming back to bite. Have you been able to watch much of the racing?
No, I haven't really watched any of the racing, in all honesty. I check in first thing in the morning to look at the results. But when we first come back, obviously we're fighting jet lag there for a little while. So even staying up past about 9 or 10 p.m. Was hard enough. So, unfortunately, I haven't seen any of the racing on SBS, with the exception of, Tour of Flanders. I watched a bit of that. But like when I raced Tour of Flanders, I sort of got dropped with about 60K to go.
Well, looking at the results sheet then between the Vuelta and then comparing it to the Giro and the Tour, what are the main differences that you see between them?
Oh, the standout differences to me between the results of the Vuelta and the other two sort of Grand Tours that we've enjoyed so far this season is the age of the riders that are doing well. We saw such a young group of riders really dominating the Tour de France, and the same at the Giro d'Italia. But the Vuelta, it's the old boys that are coming to the fore and really doing well. When you see the likes of, you know, Primož Roglič obviously doing great, as well as like Woods is one stage, is a Giro. So it's the guys with a few seasons in their legs now. And I think getting to the back end of this sort of short, intense season, the guys with the years of experience are sort of starting to really shine through.
Hey, Gero, we've spoken. Oh, sorry, mate. We've spoken a bit about on this show the back end of the season. A lot of guys out of contract. Did you ever go through periods where there was contract stuff playing on your mind? Does it affect the way you race, particularly if you're a guy that doesn't have a contract for the following year and it's getting to that 11th hour?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think you see guys will just throw caution to the wind in the back end of the season when they are without a contract. So the racing is quite often really aggressive in the last part of the season. So it does play on your mind very much so, because guys will literally like, well, if I don't do something in this race, you know, I'm potentially dropping back one level in teams or potentially without a job whatsoever. And I think with the market this year, there are so many riders without contract or with a couple of teams looking like folding. The racing will be really aggressive and really exciting right to the end of the season.
How does it impact on your decision-making when you're racing? Let's take a guy like Rob Powell, for example, who's still really young. For memory, he's only 25 years of age. He's had some good results. He was second at the Tour de Avenir. He's finished top 10 at Strade Bianche, but he has struggled with consistency. He doesn't have a contract yet for next year, and Sunweb are undecided on him. How does that impact on the way he races?
Well, literally, he's in a position where he's got nothing to lose by going on the attack and trying to race really aggressively. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, and I don't think this will be the case with Rob, guys start to race a little bit selfishly when they're thinking about contracts, and often that's to their detriment, because if they prove they're a team player right to the wire, I think that actually enhances their contract more so to stay with their current team than a result, because I think a team is very aware of the capabilities of a rider after being in the team for a couple of years. But if they start to race selfishly, that'll put a nail in the coffin and they won't get another contract.
I think one of the challenges right at this moment, Gero, is that we were just talking just before you came on, there are 100 World Tour pros not signed for next year. And I think some teams that would have been ready to sign are just hanging off because they think, well, we might be able to get some like rider A or rider B. So they're just hanging off for a little bit before they sign their guys. And so it's a really awkward situation.
Yeah, that would be a very, very difficult situation to be in from a rider. And you can kind of understand the team managers. They're like, well, there's a whole bunch of great riders on the market. If I held out a little bit longer, I'm potentially going to get this guy for half as much of what he's asking for now. So you can kind of see from a team manager's perspective why they would be holding out. But that is definitely a team manager's market, not a rider's market at all.
And then it's going to be really hard to be, with the seasons finishing so late, it's going to be really hard for sports directors, team managers to be planning 2021.
Well, I think what will make it very difficult to plan 2021 is just the racing situation. Who knows where the restrictions are going to be around COVID and whatnot early season next year. I'm not sure what the status is with Tour Down Under, but I think a lot of riders don't know when they're going to be starting their year.
I was going to say, Gero, you know how they talk in a lot of sports, particularly with, AFL, they're trying to drill into the athletes to have interests outside of the sport so that you do have a backup plan. How difficult is that with the life of a pro cyclist to have things that they're working on in the side? I know some of the female riders have got degrees and, studied business courses and stuff like that. But how hard is it in the World Tour to have that backup plan?
It is very difficult to do something really structured. I think that's ongoing once you're racing at the World Tour sort of level. But that doesn't mean you can't have interests outside the sport and interests that can develop you as a person and sort of increase your chances of having a career post-racing. There is ample time in the off-season to do a number of activities, build a network, associate with some people from outside of the sport as well, that will help you when you finish racing. So in the season, it's quite difficult. However, post-season each year when you have a bit of downtime. I think there's ample time to do a number of things.
Do you think it's more difficult for a non-European? Because if you're a 22-year-old young professional that's Belgian or French and you can still live at home and you've got that extra support at home, so there's some stuff that you're just not doing because your parents might be taking care of the dinner or the washing and so on, and you can be near a local university to do a degree or something. Do you think it's more difficult for Australians, Americans, South Africans, etc.?
I definitely think it would be a lot easier if you were in a home environment where you had other people around you taking care of all the things that, so the other bits and pieces, like you said, if you're still living at home, for example, when you're still racing professional and you had some time on your hands, or more time on your hands than what maybe a foreigner would, I think that would definitely help that. A guy that I remember that I raced alongside for a number of years or against for a number of years was Manuel Quinziato, and he completed a law degree throughout his racing career. And I think he was able to do that because he was largely based in his home area in Italy.
Yeah.
Well, Adam Hansen's another one, Keno. He does a lot of stuff off the bike. I heard stories he was at Grand Tours on his laptops and trading stocks and doing all these things in his room.
Yeah, he's also an insomniac, Adam Hansen. You hear he only sleeps about 3 or 4 hours a night, even in the Grand Tour.
Really? I'm really looking forward to seeing him in action in Ironman events. And I reckon Cameron Worth is going to be really nervous about his bike leg record at Hawaii.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think, Gerro, that's something that cycling should probably dial up a little bit more, preparing riders for the transition post-cycling? Or is it one of those things where it's like, well, you need to sort of sort your own stuff out?
I think largely you've got to be responsible for your own stuff when it comes to this sort of thing. I kind of feel most World Tour teams, they're at their absolute limit supporting riders so they can perform the best of their ability in racing, let alone thinking too much about what these guys are going to do when they're out of the system. So I kind of feel like it's largely the rider's responsibility. And the guys that sort of leave the sport and say, oh, I've just been left on my own, I think that's largely because they didn't take responsibility for themselves throughout their career.
What do you reckon, John?
Just throw it out there, they'll be right, But as Gerro just said, the teams are having enough trouble just getting through the season and getting the racing going. There's no way that they're going to be looking at other opportunities for riders. That's definitely up to the riders themselves to try and get themselves sorted. But as you guys just said, it's a lot harder when you're like Australians, Americans, whatever, when you're away from home. When you've grown up in a town, you might be racing, you're going home at night, you're still seeing your old friends, the people you went to school with, all those connections are there easy for you to jump into some other aspect of life and jump on. But when you go over from Australia and you set yourself in Europe and you're trying to make it and you turn to become a pro, you're flat out just surviving with that. You're not really, you haven't got the opportunity to really do much else. Although people like Gerro, you've managed to do it pretty well.
Yeah, exactly. And Dan, I think Simon nailed it when he said, you've got to take responsibility for yourself. You can't get spoon-fed. You've got to do it of your own accord. Because if you just keep getting shoveled everything, it's, the old theory of I can, give you fish and you'll be fed for a day, or I can teach you how to fish and you'll take care of yourself for life. You've got to go out and learn how to fish for yourself.
You're a wise man, Keno.
That. And on that note,
you've got to go. Yeah.
So I've got to go take my daughter to a tennis lesson.
All right. Good on you, Keno. Thanks for coming on the detour, mate. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks, mate. See ya.
Thanks, Matty.
One of the things I want to talk to you about, Gerro, is the service course. Now, that's one thing that you're involved with a former teammate, Christian Meyer. It's a brilliant concept. Do you want to give people a bit of an insight into what that was in Europe?
Well, what that is, so the service course, as you mentioned, Dan, it's a business that Christian founded a number of years ago now, and I'm sure you would have been into the shop when you were living in Girona. But the original store being in Girona, there's an image of it now with me at the front. The concept is being named by the service course. It's a very holistic offering in cycling, as in it is a regular bike shop specializing in custom bikes. However, it's your kind of one-stop shop for cycling, as in they have a travel sort of business, or we have a travel business, and there's also the cafes attached to it as well. So you can go to the service course and you can basically be completely looked after. There's massage rooms there's showers, all that sort of thing. There's rental bikes. So you can go there and be completely looked after with all your sort of cycling experiences, and it has so much that that appeal to cyclists and particularly people traveling for cycling.
Are you seeing a big boom with the whole cyclo tourists, particularly in places like Europe?
Well, not this year, unfortunately.
No,
But we had the original store there is in Girona, which I assume you would have visited, Dan. But we also have stores now in the UK and in Norway as well, and we're sort of looking to expand into France next year. But the shop and cycling,
got a website as well.
Yeah, cycling is booming across the board. I think through this sort of COVID lockdown, bike sales and everything associated with cycling has really skyrocketed, with the exception of maybe the travel element of the business. So it is doing exceptionally well, and there's huge interest in the business and the brand.
So now that you're moving back to Melbourne, mate, would there be an opportunity for a service course in Melbourne?
Well, I think if Melbourne has a lot of two things, it's good bike shops and good cafes. So I'm not sure the concept would be quite as popular in Melbourne or do quite as well. But in saying that, we have a really large Australian customer base and a lot of people from Melbourne and Victoria. So I'm hoping, just being on the ground back in Australia again, I'll be able to engage a little bit more with that customer base and drive some sales to our European stores.
So what is the plan for you now that you're back in Australia, mate? What are you wanting to dig your heels into?
Well, I'm going to maintain my role with the service course at this stage. Hoping to still do a number of trips back to Europe each year when sort of the restrictions ease a little bit. But I'll be largely working from home and really sort of trying to build this business.
Well, we're talking to Keenan at the top of the show about commentating at the Vuelta. You obviously did the commentary at the Tour de France this year. How'd you find that experience, and is it something that you want to do a bit more of moving forward?
I really enjoyed commentating the Tour de France. It was just really great to get back there on the road and really follow the racing closely. For sort of 18 months or so when I first stepped away from the peloton, I was so busy doing other things that I really didn't have much of an opportunity to watch much racing. So it was really good to be back at the Tour de France. I did enjoy the commentary, and I'd be very keen to sort of continue doing bits and pieces.
One of the things also, a few people are commenting now. Actually, sorry, I think I've pinched the comment from Gary Tilley then. Was the future hold for Simon Gerrans now that you're moving back to Melbourne? I think we've covered that. Carolyn says bike packaging is huge. And then, of course, Wendy Superfan, hi, guys. Good to see Matt on. One of the things we did is interviewed Jai Hindley the other day. Super impressive head on his shoulders. You must have been pretty proud of these young Aussies coming through the ranks and getting these huge results.
Yeah, definitely. The Giro was outstanding, but I think you looked at the start of the Giro, there were 18 Aussies on the start line for stage one. So it was just really good to see there were so many Australians sort of competing in the Giro, and to see a young group of guys doing so well also with Jai, with Ben O'Connor. Who'd have thought to have Aussies sort of winning big mountain stages in the third week of the Giro and having an Aussie sitting in second place by the time they got to Milan was fantastic.
And Ben O'Connor was in the break 4 days in a row because he finished second in the stage and he won the stage and he was away again in the break the next day and the day after that. So that's pretty impressive in the third week of a Grand Tour.
Oh, that's very impressive, John. And I think you know how difficult it is to be in breakaways in the third week of a Grand Tour. There's so much fatigue going into that race, into that last week of racing. So to be in that break not once but 4 times in the final week of the race just shows how bigger engine that Ben O'Connor has. So it's great to see him get his stage win and make the move to AG2R for next year.
So, Iffy, what's the latest? I saw online on Cycling News, they're saying that the Tour Down Under's probably not going to go ahead. Is this going to be a big opportunity, particularly at a national level, to really showcase the young crop coming through?
Yeah, I'm sort of stuck here. I've been involved in conversations over the last few days, and one just before I joined you guys. I was late myself joining on today, Giro, and so I can't really say much, but we will talk in more detail in a couple of days when announcements are going to be made. But let's say that the summer of cycling in Australia is going to be very different to the last couple of years, but it's still going to be exciting, and we're still going to have some great racing, but it will be very different. But rather than me start rambling away because I'll end up putting my foot in it, we will talk in a couple of days. We'll talk a lot.
Well, I'll rephrase it, Gero. So Jai, when we were talking to him, he had a very different path. He went to Europe really early in his career and bypassed that, particularly as his old man said, you're going to have to win everything in Australia just to get noticed, to get a contract. Would you advise younger riders to either, if they're really keen, to go to Europe early and sink your teeth into these races, or stay in Australia, do the NRS and follow more of a traditional path?
I don't know. Well, what's more of a traditional path these days? I don't know enough about the NRS series at this stage to say that's a great platform or a stepping stone to go to Europe. I definitely think, although there is a number of riders who recently have sort of gone directly into World Tour teams from the NRS, I think they probably struggle when they first hit the World Tour, more so than guys who do have some European experience racing maybe under 23 ranks and whatnot around Europe first. So I don't think it's a be all and end all to get over there, straight out of juniors or anything like that. But if you can get some kind of European experience each year in your career from the junior ranks up until sort of first or second year under 23, before you make a full transition to Europe, I think that's probably not a bad approach.
But that's exactly how you did, Giro, wasn't it? I mean, you went over, you weren't a junior, but as an amateur and joined, French and then even a Norwegian team at one stage.
Yeah, so it wasn't an easy pathway for me to turn professional. I think I did 5 seasons in Europe racing amateur before I got the first shot at racing in the professional ranks. So, but I was also quite late to the sport. Unlike a guy like Jai, we saw photos of him pretty much, I don't know how old he was, 10 or 12 years old or something on a racing bike.
I think he was 6, he said. He was 6-year-old he was racing, and he was racing juniors in Europe. So he started very young. But we've got some wonderful stories about people like Alan Piper, who just went on his own over as a junior, like you, Gero, like Phil Anderson, who was 20 or 19, I think, when he first went over there. Great stories, but we've also got some wonderful stories about guys who've gone through the NRS, shown stacks of ability, with guys like Andrew Christie Johnson, who have nurtured youngsters, Richie Ports and guys like that, and had plenty of contacts and got them into world teams. So it's worked both ways.
Yeah, most definitely. I don't think there's one cookie cutter mold that suits everybody. Fortunately for myself, when I was, I did a little bit of racing in Australia as a junior and just out of juniors, but there were a number of pathways to Europe. There was a really good sort of Australian sort of under 23 program. The AIS had a number of sort of small European teams where they would place riders as well as a first taste of riding abroad. And I'm not sure how many of those are currently sort of even in existence now.
Caroline's got a question for you. How many days off the bike does a pro rider have after a 3-week tour? Is that
question?
That's for you, Gary. Yeah. Well, if you would have taken a couple of months.
1 or 2 if they're lucky. Most guys will just keep it ticking over after a Grand Tour. There is a lot of fatigue for the first week or so after a Grand Tour, but if you really look after yourself, then you can sort of enjoy some of the best, your best form of the season if you can capitalize on all that work that you did throughout 3 weeks.
Yeah, good stuff, mate. Well,
I think it depends on the actual tour and what's on after. I mean, a lot of guys used to go from the Vuelta for the Worlds, and that used to be the best preparation for the Worlds, or could have San Sebastian after the tour and things like that. And you'd see guys, even look at the classics this time after the Tour de France. Who were the guys in Liège and Tour de Flanders flying? It was the Tour de France guys. So they come up. No problem at all.
Exactly. Well, should we have a quick look at the stage profile for the Vuelta before we let Giro go?
We'll do that. But while we've got Giro here, I want, and he said one of the few races he watched was the Tour of Flanders. I would like to get your thoughts on the Tour of Flanders, Alaphilippe especially, but just the way that all panned out. Not very often when you have three riders who are red-hot favourites, they end up just riding away. So what are your thoughts on the Ronde van Vlaanderen?
Well, unfortunately, I was asleep before that.
Yeah, I was going to say, he said he fell asleep with 60k to go.
Yeah, you must have watched it since. You must have watched the highlights.
I missed the best bit of the race, but the racing has been sensational this year. I think we've been so lucky that all the racing has been so good. But the standouts for me this season, obviously Van Aert. He's been just dominant through the whole season. He's a guy who timed his form to perfection. When he came in hot there and won Strade Bianche as the first race back, we thought, how long is he going to hold this form? And he's still there, duking it out at the Flanders. It was really good to see. The racing has been great, so aggressive, and just such a new wave of talent coming through this year as well.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, Dan, you show the map.
Well, I don't even think it's worth it because Sam Bennett's going to mop him up. It's going to be a sprint. I think he's paying like $1.60.
But I don't know, Giro, whether you've seen any of the highlights of last night. But if you haven't, do yourself a favour. When we hang up, just Google stage highlights, Vuelta Stage 8, and look at last night. It was one of the best stages, just a real street fight up the last climb.
Yeah, okay. I looked at the results there, and I see it was sort of turned on its head a little bit in the end. But the guys up there front, obviously Carapaz leading on GC, lost a little bit of time. I'll definitely go and check that out afterwards.
It was great. You'll love it. It was just one of the best, fights. I mean, the way they were counter-attacking and there was just no holds barred. And then, there's this great ride. And then the last 800 metres, Carapaz attacks Roglic, and then it's what happens after that. It's just fantastic.
Well, we knew that Roglic was going to win because George Bennett said, look, his legs are good. He just lost that time because of that bloody jacket. That was all that cost him in the end. So, 2 from 2.
We did pick him. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for coming on the detour, Gero. Good luck with the last 2 days of your quarantine, mate. You've done well to keep your sanity with the madhouse in there. But, I'm sure once you get your freedom, mate, it'll be like Andy Dufresne in the last scene of Shawshank. You'll just have the hands in the air, getting showered upon. It'll be awesome.
That'll be great.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, look forward to catching up. Yeah.
Good stuff, Gero. See you, mate. All right, it's time to give Mitchelton Wines a plug. You got your script?
I have, and I was just talking to them at the Mitchelton Winery only just before we came on air, sorting out everything for Sunday's birthday party for my young man, Dean's 40th. They're looking forward to the Trevorrow mob arriving, or maybe they're not, but anyway. So, so one of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. Experience the history, the beauty, and the serenity of the absolutely stunning Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Looking over the vineyards from the iconic tower, staying at the new hotel, relaxing by the pool, recharging in the day spa, exploring the seasonal menu at the Muse. And I will take some really nice photos of the wonderful food that we're going to have there on Sunday, and we'll have them for Sunday night. Stopping by the Providore, touring the cellars, and, of course, tasting their signature wines. As I mentioned, it's become a very popular venue for weddings and major functions. And, of course, you can go down to the magnificent art gallery, which is world-class, down in the basement. And it is sensational. Just some of the works of art there are amazing. And there it is, the $10,000. Oh, there's my phone ringing.
Phone's on silence for podcast, please.
I should have, and it's Andrew Moore from Lexus, so I should take it because I've been wanting to talk to him for ages. But anyway, I'll talk to you in a minute.
You can take the call. I'll wrap the show up.
No. I wanted to talk about the Land Cruiser, with the $10,000 Land Cruiser with $1 million paint job.
Paint job. That's got a better ring to it. Very good, mate. Well, that was a hectic show. I think it rattled me going solo at the start. It's fried me. I don't think I've quite been on edge because this thing goes live.
You did it to me. You did it to me at the end of the show. You left me alone and live.
Yeah, well, you only had to do it for 30 seconds. I was trying to steer the ship for about 2 minutes, and we hit anchor, buddy. Yeah, I'm going to need a stiff drink after this, I think. But, yeah, anyway, I think tomorrow we're going to have Zach Dempster on. That's going to be a great chat. He's a former Aussie pro cyclist that he's now a DS with Israel Startup Nation. So he's at the Vuelta at the moment. Loves a chat. So we'll talk about his career, have a good yarn. Yep. And, yeah, really looking forward to that. So we'll be back at normal time, 7:30 Australian Standard Time tomorrow. See you then.